if Jesus Christ was a Jehovah's Witness, we are back again, and I want to continue up with part 2 of Jehovah's Witnesses destroying lives. It's terrible.
Big a Jehovah's Witness. Certainly when I was a witness, there were 3 meetings a week.
John, you've been having doubts about being a Jehovah's Witness for many years. What sort of doubts?
They were very creeping doubts, little things. I had a lot of question marks about some of the teachings that witnesses believe in, such as their belief about 1914 or the 144,000.
What, you need to explain the 144,000?
Yeah, the witnesses believe that only a very small amount of people will go to heaven, and the rest of people that survive through Armageddon will go on to live on earth forever. And they take scripture from Revelation to believe that the number that will go to heaven will be limited to 144,000 people. But my own personal reading of the Bible, I wasn't convinced by that, and also a lot of the scriptures I would read would kind of indicate that heavenly life wasn't for everybody.
And did you voice those doubts to other members?
Not massively, a little bit. I would talk mostly to my wife about it, or members of my family, and progressively I would do more and more Bible reading myself, and I would they tend to read a scripture and marry it up with another scripture, but I would read the whole chapter or several chapters and then think, actually, this doesn't seem to be saying exactly what they say it does.
What did you fear would happen if you stopped being a Jehovah's Witness?
Well, I didn't really know what else to go to. You know, it's quite a frightening thought to believe that what you've been brought up with from a kid and you completely believe might not be true. So you tend to mentally block it out.
A friend of yours, I think John, was also a Jehovah's Witness, died. How did that influence how you felt about your religion?
Well, by that time I was already more and more convinced that what the witnesses taught wasn't true, or not all of it anyway. And then he needed a blood transfusion and he got very ill. It took him a couple of weeks and he died, and it just seemed like sort of waste of life. He was a great guy, and
then your religion, just to explain, your religion says that blood transfusions aren't allowed.
Yes, they use a scripture in Acts chapter 15, which says to keep abstaining from blood. Again, reading through the chapter, I couldn't see any particularly good reason why that should mean someone should have to lay their life down.
Again, on that.
And it's not only just abstaining from blood, but there was a time when they even opposed you having blood fractions. That's not even whole blood. Do you know how many people have died? I'm talking about thousands and thousands of people have died because of their first teachings, and they flipped it over and said, oh, now you can. They changed this teaching 4 times. 4 times. They even have a magazine out with children who died because they did not partake of blood or blood fractions, and they're sitting up here boasting about how they remain faithful to Jehovah and all of this. It's ridiculous, you know? And then you have so many people who have died because they didn't partake of blood or blood fractions or anything to do with blood. And then you sit up here and you change your teachings. Are you serious? My daughter is dead. My son is dead. My husband is dead. My wife is dead. And we all know how hard it is to find good quality people, you know, when you're battling loneliness. And now the people that you had in your life to keep you from being lonely and keep you from being by yourself, they're dead. And now you want to come out with this new teaching talking about, well, we have a new light. A new light has been shed. Yes, you can now partake of blood fractions. It's up to your conscience and yada, yada. Oh, yeah, really?
Jehovah's Witnesses in Britain told us, when we have health problems, we go to doctors who have skill in providing medical and surgical care without blood. Surgeons regularly perform such complex procedures as heart operations, orthopedic surgery, and organ transplants without the use of blood transfusions. You were disfellowshipped. Explain what that means.
I got a call one day from elders. Well, previously they would come around to my house and they would say, "What's the problem? Why don't you like going to the meetings anymore?" And we would discuss it in points. But then I had a call one day and they asked me to come to the hall where they worship to have what they call a judicial committee, which is essentially 3 elders and at least 2 witnesses to your alleged crime. And they said it was to discuss my alleged apostasy. Well, by that time I was pretty much convinced that the witnesses weren't the right to religion to inform me, so I said, "I don't want to go. I really don't recognise your authority," and so they went ahead and had this judicial committee in my absence, and I had a phone call to say that I'd been disfellowshipped and I had 1 week to appeal.
Now, you see why they disfellowshipped him? They said because he was an apostasy. He was guilty of apostasy. He was guilty of what? Telling the truth about this organization? He was guilty of what? Asking questions or not agreeing with their teachings? Now show me where is that in 1 Corinthians chapter 5. You're going to sit up here and disfellowship someone. Let's not even talk about disfellowship. You're going to sit up here and destroy this man's family. He's disfellowshipped. So that means that nobody in his family and all the people that he was hanging out with in the organization, nobody could talk to him. No, they treat him like he's dead. All because of what? He didn't agree with their teachings. Now, if Jesus Christ was a Jehovah's Witness, do you think he would be flipping up tables over that one? Of course he would.
Means what? Kicked out?
It essentially means everybody that you know within the witness organisation, all your friends, all your family, from that point onwards, they make an announcement in the Kingdom Hall, is from that point not allowed to speak to you at all.
They're not allowed to speak to you?
No.
And that's happened?
That has happened, yeah. I mean, it's very sad, you know. I've got several brothers and sisters, for instance, who I was quite close to, and from the day of my disfellowship, I haven't spoke to them.
Incoming call.
Well, what is this? No. Decline. No. Sorry. Incoming call. Sorry about that.
Call rejected.
Just over 2 years ago now.
And what do you think about that?
I think it's really sad.
You tried to contact them?
Yeah, sometimes I send them a message saying, "I love you, thinking of you," but usually there's not a response. I did actually...
And tell me that's not disgusting. I lost my family too. I lost my daughter, grandkids, son-in-law, brother. I lost my family too. Do I try to get in contact with them? No, I don't. No, I don't, because I feel that if Jehovah God has not waken them up yet, it's because something is definitely wrong in their heart. How can you be happy being a part of an organization that is destroying people's family, people's lives, marriages, people's relationships? And if that's in your heart, you get pleasure out of knocking at people's door, knowing that you're coming to destroy their family. Yeah, you are. Because let's say this family used to have movie night, they used to have dinner, they used to have their holidays like Thanksgiving, and they were such a happy family. The moment these Watchtower witnesses come knocking at your door, and let's say you start studying with them, and let's say you become a part of this cult organization, now you talk to your family about this religion, whatever, and your family make it very clear. Check this out. We love you, we respect you, but we do not want any part of that organization. When you come to this house, do not talk about that. Don't bring that in this house. We don't want to hear it. You know what's going to happen? That Watchtower witness is going to start to cut his family off. Now keep in mind, this was a family that was very close-knit before they came up in their lives. Now his family, this person's family, they go to church every Sunday. They do their Bible reading. They're living their life in harmony with the Bible. They're not doing anything to violate the scriptures. But because they don't want to be a part of the organization, that family is busted up. That's how they destroy families, and they're constantly doing it. So when it comes to my family that is still caught up in that cult, even though you have all this information out here today, no, I'm not reaching out to you, because for me to be with you, you're telling me that I have to spit in Jehovah's face, I have to stop following Jesus Christ, and I have to bow down to the tower, and I have to freaking worship a governing body. And I'm not going to do that. These people have put the governing body and in the position, and they're making them Jesus Christ. They're making them Jehovah God. And I'm not going to do that. I'm like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When Nebuchadnezzar was told them when the horn blows, everyone is to bow down. I'm the one that's left standing. My family, they all bowed down to the tower, to the governing body. And guess what? If Jesus Christ was a Jehovah's Witness, that's me. I did not bow down, especially with all this information out here. And I will never bow down. And as long as they are part of that organization, that shows me that their heart is not correct. They have a very corrupt heart. Something's wrong with them. You're happy being a part of hurting people. That's sick.
Get a message from my brother saying, yeah, I love you too, but that's the strength of it.
Right. And Sarah, this has happened to you too. You also have been shunned.
Yes. I don't speak to any of my family.
Mum, dad, siblings?
No, not at all.
For how long now?
For just over 18 months now.
That is really hard, isn't it?
It is. Much like John, I will try and send the occasional message, but there's no response.
And the impact on you of that?
It's been very, very difficult. I actually get married in a couple of years' time, and having to plan a wedding where your parents won't attend, where I will actually have no family on my side as I walk down the aisle, because of a religious belief, because I left the religion on the basis of my own safety, but because they classed it as being wrong in the Bible, I would class myself as an orphan, which is quite sad.
Terry, how do your experiences compare 17 years ago compared to what John and Sarah have described more recently of being shunned?
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't actually disfellowshipped like they were, so I managed to leave without getting, as far as they were aware, breaking any of their rules. So I didn't have a judicial committee, so I moved away as well. So, but the thing is, they still shun you anyway. So officially they don't have to shun me, but they do. So what would happen if I was in the town where I grew up and I saw a witness? They would cross the street. No, they wouldn't wave. You know, and this is people you grew up with as a child. You've been on holiday with them. These were your best friends. And like I said, we didn't have friends outside of the religion. So you would see them every week and, you know, go spend time around their house. They'd be at your house, that sort of thing. And then they won't even say hello. They'll cross the street now. I'm sure you guys have had that experience plenty of times as well. It's just a very common experience for ex-witnesses.
And so the impact's on you?
Yeah, so obviously, like one of my sisters who's still in the religion, I have no contact with her, and she has 2 children who one's just leaving school and one I guess is at high school now, and I don't know them. But I also don't know my sister because she was disfellowshipped when I was a child. She's older than me. And for 5 years, when she was trying to get reinstated, she would sit at the back of the Kingdom Hall. So when they want to come back to the religion, they have to sit at the back of the Kingdom Hall for each meeting. But you still can't talk to them. And that went on for sort of 5 years. Yeah, so that was all of my childhood. And then when she got reinstated, I left. So I don't really know my sister. I don't know what kind of food she likes. I don't know what she does at the weekend. You know, I don't know what she does for fun.
Now you tell me that Jesus Christ or Jehovah God is going to be a part of anything like that, especially when people haven't committed any real sins, you know, and yet they have to sit up here and lose their family simply because they don't want to be a part of this organization. This is ridiculous, and something has got to be done. This is why they banned these witnesses in Russia. They want to sit up here and try to say they banned them because of religious reasons. No, it's not. Oh, we're being persecuted. No, you're not. You brought this on yourself because you are known as extremist. In Russia, they saw how they was busting up families, marriages was falling apart. You know, they have all of these freaking ridiculous policies and procedures, and people in Russia was complaining about it. They brought it to the authorities and they banned them. Let them catch you practicing that religion or preaching or whatever, and you will be going to jail, deservedly so. And no, you're not being persecuted. You're getting what you deserve. How dare you sit up here and try to override Jehovah God and Jesus Christ and the Bible? You can't show me anywhere in the Bible where Jesus Christ treated people as if they were dead. You can't show me anywhere where he shunned anyone. We're instructed to follow Jesus' example and to follow his teachings. He showed all of us by example how we're to treat people even when they're doing wrong. For instance, let's think about Judas. He betrayed Jesus, and yet Jesus still called him my brother. What about Peter, who denied Jesus 3 times? Did Jesus shun him? What about the prostitute that Jesus defended her? I mean, she was a prostitute, for goodness sake. Did Jesus not step up and speak up in her behalf? And let's not forget doubting Thomas, who was never going to be convinced that Jesus had risen unless he had proof. Now keep in mind, and let's not forget about the tax collectors also. How did Jesus Christ treat them? Now, these are people who had Jesus in their midst. They saw all the miracles. They saw Jesus Christ straight up, and yet they committed these sins against him. Did he shun these people? No, he did not. No, he did not. Now, did he stop having fellowship with any of these people, especially those tax collectors, because tax collectors was known to be hated by everyone? No, Jesus did not. So we're going to follow in Jesus Christ's footsteps. We are going to handle people who do wrong. We're going to handle them lovingly, and we're going to try to help them correct their steps. I'm not saying that you're going to hang out with them and be ace boon coon. No, but when you run into these people or you see these people, there's nothing wrong with giving these people words of encouragement when you run into them. That's something that Jesus Christ would most certainly do. 1 John chapter 4, verse 8 clearly states, anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. Even Jesus Christ's Father, Jehovah, makes it clear that we are to love each other. Shunning people and treating them as if they are dead is a far cry from showing love. People have actually committed suicide because of this practice. Families and marriages are destroyed because people keep taking the scriptures out of context. Jehovah and Jesus Christ are the originators of families and marriage. How dare a bunch of imperfect men who admit they are not inspired by God and they are not infallible, how dare them come along and destroy what Jesus Christ has put together? They don't have the right to play God. When the apostles asked Jesus, I don't know if you remember this, but the apostles had asked Jesus, which is the greatest command? And Jesus stated at Matthew chapter 22, verse 36 through 40, he said, and I'm going to read, Teacher, which command in the law is the most important? And Jesus answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. This is the first most important command. And the second most important command, love your neighbor the same as you love yourself. And check out verse 40. All of the law and the writings of the prophets take their meaning from these two commands. So that First Corinthians crap, that's overwritten, So these two commands is what God and Christ is going to hold us accountable for. These two commands supersede all other rules and all other commands. You can note that's noted right there in verse 40. And throwing families members away is, and it never will be, any kind of love that's spoken of in the Bible. Never, ever, ever. That command to love God and love each other, that supersedes First Corinthians and any other scripture that they want to try to use to keep you trapped in this cult. We are under two commands. Love God, love each other, and don't you forget it. Don't let this organization sit up here and indoctrinate you and brainwash you until you get to a point where you put governing body over Jehovah, Jesus, and the Bible.
So that's knowing that you have a sister that you don't know, that's quite tough.
Yeah, that is sad. Yeah. Sarah, did you know that you would be shunned effectively if you didn't submit to the way your husband wanted to treat you?
Yes, but you have a hope, I suppose, that your family would still love you enough to speak to you. But that was a driving point that made me stay probably longer than I should have, because I was terrified. I had no support network outside of the religion. I had nobody. I knew if I left, I'd have nobody. So it was what was the lesser of two evils.
And when you did leave, when you were shunned, disfellowshipped, where did you go? Where did you sleep?
I went from bed to bed at friends' houses, from work that I'd not known 2 minutes, and these people rally round me, these people that I'd been told were awful and were bad association and God was going to smite them all at Armageddon. And yet these people opened up their homes. My colleagues in my office at the time, I stayed there, and everybody made sure that I was all right and I was safe.
And where did you go?
Check that out. And these are the very people that this organization try to tell you outside the organization. Those are wicked people. You can't trust those people. And yet and still, those are the very people that helped her. People from her job. They understood what she was going through. They understood what it's like when you're coming out of a cult. You out here by yourself. You have no one. And they took her under their wing. And they helped her until she got on her feet. And I remember how this organization treated my freaking family when they got older. I remember. They were nowhere to be found to help my family when they was going through a hardship. Who was the ones that helped them? What they call, let's quote, worldly people. Yeah, those very worldly people are the ones who had their back.
Because you wouldn't have friends or a support network outside the religion either, would you?
No, it was a very isolating time. I mean, immediately after the disfellowshipping, I was still within my family home. It turned out that my wife was one of the witnesses that in the judicial committee that put a huge strain on our relationship, so we ended up splitting.
You heard what he said? He said his wife. He didn't say my living lover, my jump off, my whatever. No, my wife. They ended up splitting because she was a part of the organization, and because he woke up and she was still asleep, walking in the dark, he sees the light, they end up splitting.
For a while I lived in a tent, and then I lived in a caravan.
So you were homeless?
Pretty much, effectively. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of on my own doing because I chose to leave, but I just felt I couldn't stay in that environment anymore. It was a difficult time. I mean, that summer was probably the hardest time of my life.
Now, if you notice, he didn't do anything wrong that went against the scripture. Only thing he did was he chose to leave. And like they say, you leave us, we're going to hold your family hostage. You want your family back? You better come back to us. How about that? Now you tell me that's not a freaking cult. Anyway, I'm going to end this one, and we're going to discuss Jehovah's Witnesses and higher education and how they totally advise you to go against it. Because they want you to have all the time to be knocking at doors so you can recruit people. Why do they want all of these people coming in? So they can get more donations. It's all about the money, honey, just like every other corrupt organization. Same thing. This is If Jesus Christ Was a Jehovah's Witness. Until next time.